Hey everyone, welcome and thank y'all so much for joining us for another great video meetup. I'm your host for today, Justin Ong. We've got a really fascinating conversation. We're going to be talking all about esports, and in particular how the educational industry is taking advantage of it to help reach out to students. For more on this, we have a great panel of experts, including someone from HP to tell us about the work that they've been able to do, as well as some other customers that have actually put this into practice. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start things off with a round of introduction. Coming to us first, representing HP, he is the esports and co-curricular specialist. Please welcome Mr. Josh Pan. Josh, welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going good. Thanks for having me, Justin. I'm glad to have this discussion with my fellow co-panelists about esports and its value in education.
Fantastic. Josh, do you mind telling us a little bit about your role at HP and what you do?
Of course, yeah. So one of my main jobs at HP is helping customers build successful esports programs in their education context, whether it's K through 12 schools, which we're seeing more and more esports adoption, or whether it's working with universities like Grandview University, who one of my fellow co-panelists happens to be a director of. So it's really, I would say our role is kind of twofold. First, it's advising them about what we see as the broader education value of esports, right? So it's not just about playing video games competitively, it's about all the different ways you can get students interested in programming careers, marketing careers, and how you can build social skills through esports as well. And then also, obviously, as a technology company, advising them on what's the appropriate equipment and other technology they need for their esports programs.
All right, fantastic. Well, we are excited to talk to you, Josh, so thank you so much for joining us. Our next guest is the Vice President for Student Affairs at Grandview University. Please welcome Mr. Jay Prescott. Jay, welcome to the
Thank
show. How's it going?
Good, Justin. Thanks a lot for having me on the panel. And as Josh said, I'm the Vice President for Student Affairs at Grandview University, and I'm also the Executive Director of our esports program here at Grandview University that we have now had we're in our fourth year of varsity competition. I'm also the Executive Director of NACAD, which is the National Association of Esports Coaches and Directors. And it's an association that we formed a couple years ago solely for the professional development of the coaches and directors that are getting into this profession at both the high school and the university level, and just helping them grow as professionals. And so kind of able to talk about two different organizations today, and I've had a great pleasure of working with Joshua over the years, and so thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you as well for joining. And last but not least, the founder and CEO of STEM Minds Corp, Ms. Anu Bidani. Anu, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Very well, thank you, Justin. Thank you for inviting me to the panel as well today. So STEM Minds is a mission-driven organization focusing on youth K to 12 in bringing STEM education to the forefront. And we do that both through in-person programming as well as virtual and online courses. And esports has been on our radar for now a few years. Kids love video games, they love playing. And there's a lot that can be harnessed from esports to continue their passion and channel it for their future career and growth as well. So, we've had the privilege of having HP support and using some of their equipment and setting up our esports lab. So lots of exciting fun that we've been able to do, and hope to see esports be adopted and grow more in the K-12 market as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us as well, Anu. Josh, I did want to start with you. So I wanted to hopefully ask you to set the stage a little bit. For folks who aren't super familiar with esports, can you tell us what exactly esports is? And in particular, how is it different than when I just fire up my video game console when I'm at home?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess the simplest way of describing esports would be at its core, it's competitive video game playing, generally in a team environment. So there are a few games where esports student athletes would play by themselves, but for the majority of them that we focus on are really team based, right? And it's because you want to be able to use this team atmosphere to teach students all the same sort of team skills that you would if they were playing basketball or football, right? Kind of the traditional team sports that they might not be engaged in. So yeah, at its core, esports is team-based competitive video game playing. But I would say like don't come into it with too many preconceptions. It does take things like strategic thinking, good, I'd say excellent communication skills, especially because things happen so quickly. You need to go through and actually review film and conduct strategic analysis. So it's I would say esports athletes probably operate on a much higher level in terms of their thinking than your average person who's just hanging on their couch and playing video games.
Mhm. So, how big has esports gotten? And especially, I know video games are, of course, rising in popularity.
Mm-hmm.
They have been since I was a kid, but esports, let's talk about how big that has become.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there are two. I guess a great example of how big esports is actually having universities, both in the United States and Canada, Europe and abroad, that are participating in it. Right? It wouldn't be these universities wouldn't be participating in it if it was nothing or not important to their students. So I think that's kind of one pretty salient example in terms of the professional scene. Right, just an example, I think it was 1 year ago, 2019, the Fortnite World Championships. Fortnite's a really popular video game. I'm sure any parents watching it is probably familiar. Their students play it. The Fortnite World Championships actually happened in the same place that the U.S. Open traditionally happens. And I think the total prize pool for that weekend was close to $30 million, with one of the winners bringing home something like $3.5 million just for a weekend of play. So there is a lot of money and investment behind it and a lot of growth just in gaming in general. And we're looking at universities in K through 12 seeing kind of that student interest and being like, okay, how can I take that student interest and make it academically and socially meaningful for our kids?
So let's talk about that because again, when I was growing up, my mom just told me that video games were just going to rot my brain and weren't going to help me get a job. And now y'all are telling me something completely different. So can you help us kind of tie, specifically for my mom, how do we tie what esports can mean, why it's so relevant to students, and how it can help enhance their education?
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely have my views on it as someone who participates and is engaged in technology. I think one of the main ones, right, is you are trying to reach students who may be tuned out of school, but if they're super interested in video games, you can bring them into not just playing video games, but bring them to the kind of that team-based extracurricular environment. I mean, there are a number of ones I can elaborate, but I would actually prefer to defer to Anu and Jay because they live this kind of student experience with esports, and I'm sure, right, they deal with students on the day-to-day and could probably speak to it better than I can.
Yeah. Why don't we? Let's. It's a great segue. Let's go back to Jay. And Jay, do you want to tell us a little bit more about how it's worked for y'all? Let's start off with how did you even kind of come up with integrating esports into your student body and curriculum in the first place?
You bet. Yes, Grandview University is a four-year liberal arts private university in Des Moines, Iowa. We about the size 1,500 to 2,000 full-time students, and at our size of university, we're always looking for ways to grow our enrollment and to do that in a way that fits with the mission of the university. And one of the ways that we've been successful in doing that over the years is by adding athletic programs. And during my 15 years here at Grandview, we've added numerous sports that we feel fit with the mission of our university. And about 4 years ago, esports kind of came on our radar, and so I started to, do research on what was happening in the university scene. At that time, there were about 15 universities that were offering full varsity athletic programs. So similar, if you think similar to like basketball or football, where you have scholarship athletes, you play at a varsity level, you're funded by the university, you have coaches that are hired to run the programs. And so once we looked into it and saw the vast number of high school students that were playing esports and that were interested in playing at the collegiate level, it was really an easy decision for us at that time to add it. So we are currently in our 4th year, and we have now a roster of 47 athletes. Our athletes are treated just like our other sports. Our best gamers get the exact same scholarship that our quarterback and our running back get on our football team. They are treated with the same respect and kind of stage as all of our other athletes on our campus. And it's really exciting for us to see, like Josh mentioned, many of the students that we recruit do not have high school teams yet. And so to now have their sport be recognized as a legitimate sport that they've been competing in for years on their own and on their own teams, to come together on a university campus to establish a level of competition that can compete with other universities around the country. It's really exciting, and it's been an exciting venture for us over the 4 years, and to grow to the stage that we have, having one of the top programs in the country. And it's just been very exciting and very rewarding to help the students really embrace their sport and see it come alive. And 4 years later, I'll just mention, because Josh just kind of mentioned about the growth, when we started, there were 17 universities that were offering programs, and now there are about 200 universities that are offering varsity programs, and there's probably another 200 universities that are offering somewhere between a club program and a varsity program. So the growth has been really, just unbelievable at the university level the last 4 years. And now at the high school level, we're seeing that same explosive growth, because athletes now at the high school level are going to their athletic directors and saying, why don't we have an esports program? I can get a scholarship, and we need to be supported just like the other programs on our campus. So it's just been a very exciting time in esports, and that's kind of how it fits for Grandview University.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I'm super jealous that these scholarships were not around when I was in high school. Jay, what would you say were kind of the most tangible benefits that the university gets from having this program? Is it better outreach? Is it increase in applications or donors or anything like that? What can you share with us?
Yes, for us, adding sports, as I mentioned, has always been around enrollment growth if it fits with our mission. So there's really two purposes. We want to have a mission alignment when we bring students to our campus, but then we're also looking for other ways to grow enrollment on our campus. And so we've been able to achieve both of those. We started off with a 5-year goal of having a 25 person roster. And as I said, we're already 4 years into it. We're already around 45, 47 student athletes on campus. And then, since we're a mission-driven institution, it just kind of fits in just like our other sports do, as far as student success, student development, helping our students not only, plan their degree, but be successful in completing their degree as an athlete here on campus.
Anu, let's go to you next. Can you talk to us about how your organization has been able to leverage esports and how y'all got started with it?
For sure. So we are as I said earlier, in the K-12 industry. So we work with kids ages 4 to 14 primarily, and we run STEM education programs. And one of the programs that we teach young kids is video game design and development. And a lot of kids ages 8 to 10 just love building games and playing with other children. And so we started seeing requests from a kid saying, why can't we play just games and not have to just develop all the time? So we started having conversation internally saying, okay, how do we do competitive games with young kids and in a way that was meaningful? So we started looking into esports a little bit more deeply at that point to see how was it being utilized, like what would be the benefits to education? Because being in STEM education, we wanted to make sure that we were drawing very clear lines between entertainment and education. So we spent some time, working through the curriculum and understanding what how can we harness the power of esports for education? And lo and behold, there were tons and tons of connections from, nutrition to health and wellness to business and marketing and collaboration and team building, strategic thinking. I mean, when we start looking at how much esports is a cross-curricular program, it really gave us the excitement that it was worth time and energy spending into it. And that's where we actually partnered with HP at that point with their support. We actually set up a full esports lab at our center. And we spent about 5 months building a esports program, purely targeted toward high school students, where it was I would say half the program was education focused, curriculum pedagogy focused for esports, and the remaining half was actually playing the game. And what we found was that students loved the idea of actually spending some time and understanding, the digital citizenship when it comes to gaming, and how they can play games while being healthy and not always feel like if I sit, I can't take a break, right? Like we have to really literally teach them to walk away when they have to walk away. The other thing is when kids get into gaming, the intensity is very strong. And to how you manage yourself mentally and be active and engaged in it. So we really found a lot of power that if we shared this knowledge with kids at a younger age, their ability to take all of this and move into competitive esports, as well as take it further in their life in a positive way, would be really powerful. Because the biggest challenge we were facing was parents who were very worried about kids getting into esports, and they're and from a parent's lens, they see toxicity in esports. They see a lot of how will my child ever earn a job playing games, and it was our job to break those myths, that mindset, and say toxicity can be removed if we start teaching kids at a younger age how to enjoy that platform for the good of everybody. Because if everybody is thoughtful of that, it will create a very positive environment. And then for parents to start seeing the connection of broadcasting, journalism, marketing, full agency-based skill that kids could be learning, right? Using a platform like esports where their passion is. So it was a natural move for us to kind of move kids into that space. We started with the house league to kind of try to see how will we get kids engaged and make sure they spend the time learning and not just playing. And we definitely had to tweak the program quite a bit. So to figure out the right balance between learning and playing. And one of the things that did come out of this whole process was the whole thing about leadership and coaching in games. While kids wanted to learn, they were comfortable learning about health and nutrition and mental wellness and, digital citizenship, but they also wanted to learn how to be coaches and how, if they were good at a game, how could they do that? So, for us, it's opened a lot of doors. It's opened a lot of dialogue with parents to kind of get their support in giving their children the privilege or at least the opportunity to get into a brand new career choice, which would have never been considered before. It has opened a lot of doors for us in talking to high school teachers who are involved in cross-curricular integrated programming to see how esports can be harnessed in a very powerful way in an education setting in public schools so children can continue to learn, be engaged, and truly enjoy what esports has to offer.
That's wonderful. Thank you both for sharing that. Josh, so based on what we heard from Anu and Jay, how could other organizations determine whether or not something like esports might be a good fit and whether they might be able to see some of these same benefits?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the first places for an organization to start is just a brief survey of their students, right? Try and gauge the student interest. We know, generally in younger people are interested in esports and gaming, but you really want to check to see, if that's carrying through to your high school, middle school, or university. And then secondly, I would say, I'd really advocate reaching out to your peer network, like people like Jay, Anu. Everybody are pretty representative of the educators in esports. Everybody I've met is incredibly thoughtful and willing to share and help. They'll say what worked for them, the challenges they run into. So hopefully you don't make those same mistakes. And then really once you've got a good idea that sort of an initial program could be successful, then it's about reaching out to your technology provider to see what, you get some advice on how to get this started and what the equipment needs might be. So I know, especially in Canada, Compugen has developed an expertise in analyzing kind of what the students you want and analyzing what your requirements are and helping you navigate those technology, getting that technology set up, whether it's going to be a small lab or you have something like Grandview where you've moved rooms a couple times, right? Where you're hosting LAN tournaments yearly for people to come and see with some broadcasting there. So yeah, definitely a technology provider. HP as well, feel free to reach out to me. I can give you advice on how to get started and how to scale over time.
Great. Yeah, and I think that's a great segue. Jay, Josh brings up kind of the facilities that can enable something like an esports program. What was that like for Grandview University putting a facility together? Was it complicated? Were you able to reuse a lot of the same hardware you had, or was it kind of a redesign from the ground up?
Yeah, no, for us it was a redesign from the ground up, and we found a space in one of the bottom floors of a residence hall, and it has about 1,700 square feet, which it's a decent sized space, but probably our best connection to start with was just what Josh said, and we were fortunate enough to connect with Josh and Owen by HP right from the start. And the great thing about Josh is that he not only knows his equipment and what HP can deliver, but he understands gaming. He understands esports, and so he could bring the knowledge to us and help us lay out our facility. We started the first year with 15 stations. The second year we grew to 25 stations, and then every year we've added another 10. So this, now we're maxed out in our space. We have about 48 gaming stations. We had to, social distance everybody this year and make it healthy to be able to play. But having somebody like Josh and others, that are experts in knowing how to make the most of your budget, because a lot of schools don't have like Big Ten football type budgets to start an esports program, and so it's very helpful to be able to engage people that can help you lay out facilities. And we have a wonderful facility. Our athletes love it. They love to spend too much time in the arena. And so, just like Anu was talking, you have to teach and educate on balance and making sure it's good. Josh also mentioned just reaching out and networking, and that's really where NACAD, the National Association of Esports Coaches and Directors, was started. A couple years ago, because many of the people getting into this profession, they know gaming. And they're just learning how to be a coach. And so what NACAD does, we provide not only professional development in the coaching realm, and helping coaches learn how to recruit well, how to handle a budget, how to develop student athletes, how to help them be academically successful, how to deal with health and wellness and mental health issues, just all the different things that are way beyond the 15% of X and O's when it comes to coaching gaming. It's the 85% of the sport that really helps a coach and a director be successful. And that's what NACAD's done. It's brought together this network. We're up to almost 300 members of coaches and directors across the country and in Canada that have really come together, and we support each other and help each other learn how to do competitive esports the right way. And that's both at the high school level and the university level.
And I just want to say real quick, Justin, so a company like HP, through our Omen brand and through other lines, are experts in technology. However, we're not experts in the thing that Jay's discussing in terms of coaching development, right? esports won't be successful without the work that Jay and others are doing with NACAT and doing that professional development. Esports won't be successful for the long term without the work that Anu's doing, especially in terms of teaching younger students social emotional skills and developing esports curriculum. So yes, you'll need a technology provider, but you'll also need people like Jay and Anu to guide you on the the parts that are actually probably truly more important and a lot harder to solve than the technology, to be honest.
Yeah, Anu, let's go to you next. What was the I do want to ask about the coaching and staffing, but starting with the facilities, what was that like? What was the preparation process like for you?
So for us, I knew that whatever we were going to build at STEM Mind was just going to be a pilot model that would like to see replicated in public schools. So we actually put a lot of thought in how would we use underutilized small space to set up a lab and how would all of this work. And we were trying to kind of forecast the kind of challenges schools would face and how we would proactively address them. So we came up with a configuration that can fit like in a 1,000 square feet space, 15 terminals in there. And we actually positioned it as a multi-use space where, when you have time to run esports, you run esports program. Otherwise, you run high-end computing programs. Like we run our coding club in there. We run our graphic designing program in there. So that those Omen machines are awesome. They've got the horsepower to do a lot more than just esports. So we made sure that the lab was a multi-use lab because that's where, even in a school, the absorption is a lot easy. You can easily set it up in a space and use it during school hours plus after school hours. So for us, the setup had to be multifunctional. And we also wanted to make sure that, when students are playing, they also need an audience. And when you have a small room where, students are playing, then how do you create an arena when you don't have an arena? So that's where the power of technology, streaming services and all become very, very, very powerful. And we've been exploring ways of how do you stream these events powerfully outside the classroom so others can still enjoy it in an arena and feel part of it. So all of these factors have gone into our thinking, our decision-making process, so that schools can replicate that model and bring it into their own spaces. So far it's been fun. And I know the cool factor was big. So we had to make sure you had the right furnishing, the right lights, the right wow factor. So when kids came in there, it was their den. It was their space that they would love to play. But we also had to balance a little bit about what boys likes and what girls like. So I have to say girls generally feel left out of esports. It's still a lot of people think it's a boys' game. Being a women-led business here, so we have a lot of young women who love gaming and esports as well. So we wanted to make sure that the space was welcoming for both men and young men and young women, so that they all felt they were part of it. So we did think about all of those things as we designed our space.
Yeah, and like similar to what Jay had mentioned, what is the staff preparation like, especially if you are working with elementary schools? I mean, do they need to hire an esports coach? Do they just take the teacher that is most interested in video games and make them the coach? What's been your advice for that?
So for me, I've been very fortunate. 4 members of my team are esports lovers. They play themselves very competitively. So this was a dream come true for them where they can play and they can coach young kids. So I've been very fortunate that, we've been able to build our program from the lens of gamers, from the lens of teachers, from the lens of kids. And, I bring the lens of a parent. And I think when we brought all of this together, we were able to create a really powerful program. But to what Jay and Josh has both have said earlier, it is really, coaching is very important because we've had many students ask us, can somebody coach me in the gaming part of things? So I do feel like that role of coaches and leaders who are trained in that place would be very powerful for esports. And, as we evolve our program, we definitely are going to knock on the doors of professional coaches who can come in and professionally coach these students to take them to the next level of performance. Because the reality is, if we can engage them well in high school, they have a very nice roadmap into colleges, universities, wherever they want to go, where esports programs are held, not only from a scholarship perspective, but career perspective as well. So I think, the more we can kind of give them that foundational support, the more successful they will be, moving from a K-12 environment into a post-secondary environment as well.
Great. We're starting to run out of time, but I wanted to check in with Josh one last time. I mean, I think certainly as we've kind of been comparing esports to traditional physical sports, we can see how equipment can play a big part in the success. I mean, people don't want to, uh, lose simply because, there was lag during the tournament. And so hardware obviously is a huge part of it. Can you talk to us a little bit about specifically, what does HP do to help make organizations that are looking to deploy esports as successful as possible?
Yeah, well, definitely. Well, here at HP, we act as a trusted technology advisor, especially in partners with Compugen, who are very knowledgeable in the field as well. And right, so our role is essentially talk to universities and schools and say, here's most likely the current technology you have. Let's analyze it and let's kind of show you very concretely about why it's probably inadequate for esports. I think it's exactly like you're saying. It's a really poor experience for students if they lose a match or a critical moment because they just don't have the performance, right? That'll cause frustration, resentment. And so you want to make sure that your students are set up to be successful with the right equipment. And I think that's especially particularly important in K through 12, because just like Anu said, these computers are powerful, and this gaming technology is powerful enough to be used for multiple things, not just gaming. You can still use it for game design work, for rendering and different things you need to do. So, it has that kind of extra return on investment if you're to go, if you go down the route of esports. So yeah, there's definitely some pretty distinct differences between traditional computing and gaming grade computing, and definitely super happy and would love to talk to people who are watching this about what those differences are and provide some advice.
All right, great. And one final question for you, Josh. Do you have a favorite Fortnite dance that you can perform for us?
So I'm gonna date myself a little bit here. Fortnite is for sure, after my time. I grew up on sort of a different generation of video games, so Fortnite, unfortunately, was never in my wheelhouse.
That's a great excuse to not dance on camera. We believe
yeah, exactly right. The games I would play, probably not what the kids play these days, shall we
dancing.
say.
Okay, I got it. It's okay, Josh. It's all right. We'll get you next time. Anu, do you have any final advice for audience members today that are maybe thinking about ways to incorporate esports into their curriculum?
I would ask everyone to look at esports with an open mind. It is a platform ripe for growth, and student voices to us are very important. And if your children say they want to look into esports, I would encourage them to give them the opportunity to explore it. It can be done really well. It can have powerful impact from an education perspective and engaging them in a learning process, because esports does do that really well. So, just be open-minded with esports. It has a place in the K-12 space. And, hopefully schools will be open to bringing more house leagues and esports teams into their programs as well, because students will enjoy it.
Fantastic. And Jay, same question to you. Any advice that you would share with our audience members today?
I'll just build on what Anu said there, that, the statistics show that about 60 to 65% of high school students that game are not actively involved in any other activity at their high school. And so this is a real opportunity for administrators, superintendents, high school principals to really offer something that can engage a population of students that are looking for something that aligns with their gifts and their skills. And so it's really an opportunity for school districts to step up and provide something that can really engage this population in a positive way. And with that, as Anu said, there are now opportunities at the university level where these students can then engage and really thrive, not just come to a university, but they can get an opportunity to maybe even pay for some of their university experience, be actively engaged in a university team that we know, again, from statistics, that leads to degree completion and future employment success. And that's what we're all about at the university level. That's what we're about at Grandview University, and that's what we're about at NACAT as well, and helping coaches and directors make that possible for students both at the high school and university level. So if we can help out with that development in any way, please reach out to us.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank everyone on this panel, Josh, Anu, and Jay. I had a wonderful time talking with you. I learned a lot, and I'm going to definitely send this to my mom and tell her I told you so. But a big thank you as well to our sponsors for today, CompuGen and HP. And hope that you guys will reach out to them if you have additional questions about esports. But until then, everyone, please stay safe, and we'll see you back here next time. So long, everybody.